Okay, cool. So this is a recording piece on Friday the 17th of June 2016. And this is the day after our MP for this area, Jo Cox, it's Mrs. Jo Cox. This is the area of BATLEY and SPEN. So the MP for this area has been killed. I'm not going to bother saying anything about the person that did it, except to say that they appear to be damaged in some way, and there's some kind of question mark over whether, you know, they were on the right meds type of thing. You know, there's a mental health issue perhaps, but that's it. The point about Jo Cox is that I only had a very small amount of contact with her, which was send an email to the effect, here's a video piece I'd like to watch, which was about how we should leave the EU, and she sent me back a polite reply saying, making it clear that she thought the EU was better off staying together, and that people would be better working through those problems that they had, and that's a valid point of view. Now, what happened, of course, is that somebody, it appears, thinks that throwing a rotten egg or shucking a bucket of water over somebody or shouting at them isn't enough. And she was, of course, shot and stabbed. The thing is, she was actually quite an unusual MP in some ways, in that she was from the local area, this part of Yorkshire. I think she was either born or grew up in Heckmondwike, which is just a couple of miles down the road. We're out here in our summer house at the moment, and he calls it that, you know, as he's in here to protect himself from the rain. And she went through Cambridge, several years at Cambridge University. Then she went on to do something in Oxfam, and I mean, all that stuff is out there, which is where I've got it from. And she was only recently made the MP for this area. She was, it was last year. She was 41 years old, 2 kids, husband, you know, everybody knows this stuff. She lives on a barge in London. I don't know what kind of digs she has when she's up here in Yorkshire. She was a pretty wonderful person, really. I mean, she sort of reminds me of a little upbeat kind of squirrel type person, you know. She seemed to be energetic, and lots of people say she engaged with them and stuff. There's really no bad stuff of particular note that seems to come forward, and as MPs go, at 41 years of age, that's actually pretty young. I mean, it's some real old fogies, you know, stiff old white middle-aged men out there, or older than middle-aged men, as MPs. And the last guy was pretty good. I don't think anybody disliked him, but you know, he's moved over and made way for the new wave, and Jo Cox was it. She said she found it pretty tough to do the Cambridge thing, and then there's this thing of going into Westminster after she did the Oxfam stint, and it all, you know, it's quite a decent CV. And now we've been robbed of this very unusual and excellent fit of a person for this area. This is quite a blue collar area. This is quite a there's not a boatload of really affluent people here. There are some relatively affluent people in this area, but it's not like you know, certain parts of London or something like that. So we've lost quite a notable member of our community, who I have no reason to believe anything except the best of. And who are you going to replace her with? She is, I mean, this is the word that keeps coming to my mind, irreplaceable. I walked my little pilgrimage today Our eldest daughter finished her GCSEs today, and she had to walk home because I didn't give her the customary lift, because I was walking to Bristol, which is just over a hill. You go over a bit called Hilltop and you're into Bristol from where we are. And I walked over there, and there's plenty of police, and there's the camera crews and the big dishes on top of the vans. And in the afternoon after I left, I just went to have a skeg early on. In the afternoon after I left, David Cameron, the Prime Minister of the UK, turned up. And the helicopters flying overhead, umpteen armed police, various other police, PCSOs, every description of copper was there. And of course they believe that they caught the person who's responsible. And when I went to Oska's, which is the little cafe I went into, I was chatting with a few people. There were a couple of guys working locally and stuff, and we were talking. And some people said torture the assailant. Other people said let him go free and see what kind of welcome he gets when he leaves the courtroom. And it's all pretty irrelevant, because none of it, unfortunately, no matter how we process this guy, none of it will bring Jo Cox back. And she is irreplaceable. I mean, for the reasons I've explained, she's from this area originally, and she, despite her background and accent, made it through Cambridge and went into that sort of system, and she found it tough, but she got through it. We're just 7 minutes drive away. Here where we sit in this summer house of ours, we are literally 7 minutes drive away, and I was sat having tea and toast, as best I can recollect. I was having tea and toast in the kitchen when the incident occurred yesterday, lunchtime, just before 1 o'clock. And she was pronounced dead just before 2 o'clock on the 16th, Thursday the 16th. It was market day, so there were a few people about, little marketplace next to the library and information centre, where she was going to give her surgery, as they call it, which is an advice time with your, consultation time with your MP, Member for Parliament. And UK MPs do this. This is the way they work. And it brings them face to face sometimes with some unpleasant characters who are extremely aggressive. I mean, I had a difference of opinion with, I'm diametrically opposed to the view that, the Remain view that she had. I believe we should leave. At no point did that make me think I should make a homemade gun and carry a big knife and go and assassinate someone who had an opposing view. And why this guy didn't have the humanity to think twice when he saw the size of her. She's not a big person. She's not an intimidating physical presence. She is an intellect presence, an intellectual presence, and a determination and an energy, but she wasn't a big physical person. And there's a kind of horrible bullying thing about that makes me think the guy was a really yellow coward. And it's really quite, I found myself, and I don't usually admit to this, most men don't, this morning I was crying. And that's about that's the second time in a row I found myself, second day in a row I found myself crying over this incident. And part of the upset is a flash of anger that you get when you think about it, and part of the upset is that she was just a little woman, and you'd think anyone with humanity, a bit like coming across a floppy-eared rabbit or something that was in your way, you wouldn't stomp on it, you'd nudge it out of the way and carry on your way. Mind you, I'm the kind of person, if our family sees a bee on the ground, we nudge it into the side of the path so that it doesn't get stood on. But I guess there's different kinds of ways of looking at the world, and the kind of guy that went over to her that day, tooled up and much physically bigger, obviously doesn't have much humanity and doesn't have much balls either. And I would take her to be quite an energetic, feisty young woman. Young to me, 'cause she's 41, about to turn 42 next week. And I guess that's about all I have to say. Jo Cox, we're bereft of Jo Cox, and that's a really bad thing, because she was really worth having. And we're now left with the damaged goods that is the person, the assailant that caused the damage. We can get an alternative to Jo Cox. We can hold a by-election, but we won't replace her because she is irreplaceable. And I guess that's my tribute to Jo Cox. Irreplaceable, and we are much poorer represented for it. And she was a pretty wonderful human being, and it's not, those aren't words I use about humans very much. So I hope there's some kind of peace for her family, and we'll exercise due process as a society and civilization on whoever it is who's alleged to have done it and who finally is proved to have done the job on her. But there's no real relevance to it in terms of improving our situation. We'll get an alternative MP, but she was pretty irreplaceable, and she was a great fit for this area, a blue collar area, working area, and she came from here, and she was a damn good representative of the people here, including me and my family and all the other people here. What can I say? Big loss. Thanks very much for watching and listening.